Seattle's ANTIFASTAN is a humiliating disaster for the Democrats. In this video, we're going to take a look at how the left's love affair with this new autonomous zone in Seattle has not only become a laughingstock for most Americans, but demonstrates precisely why the left in the end is ultimately only destroying themselves and guaranteeing Republican dominance for decades. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve here with you. Wonderful to be with you as always. I look forward to this time each and every day. If you're brand new to this channel, we post 2 videos a day analyzing current events in light of some super awesome conservative trends so you can live in the present in light of even better things to come. We help you to think better so you can feel better. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button and get encouraged with each and every video on the myriad of ways in which left-wing globalism is indeed collapsing and a new conservative age is rising. Let's start with our video chat question of the day. Do you believe Chaz-like takeovers will spread to more cities? Let us know what you think in the comment section below. Do you believe our cities will start turning more and more into Antifa-stans? Because for some reason, that's a concern among America's right wing. When we're going to find out that Seattle's liberal laughingstock is nothing less than one of the best gifts to have ever come to the political right. But before we get into that, if you are looking for an encouraging and hopeful alternative to all the fake news that's being spewed out there on a daily basis from the leftist likes of CNN and MSNBC and the New York Times, you are going to find no better antidote than what's in the pages of my book, The Return of Christendom. Do not take my word for it. Just read through the reviews on Amazon, over 150 of them, and you'll see how this book cuts through all the cynicism and despair that we so often feel living in this crazy globalist world. And what it's going to do is it's going to inspire you to and give you the hope you need to look at the world in a whole new light. In page after page, I give you all the data and statistics and indicators that show nothing less than a new conservative Christian majority emerging throughout the United States and Europe. And it's already transforming the world map into a more nationalist, populist, and traditionalist world. And if you click on that link below, we're offering it for a limited time at a 50% discount. That's right. Don't go to Amazon. Click on that link. It's a limited time offer. And get your book at a super discount today and arm yourself with the information you need to crush fake news once and for all. All right, let's dive right in here, gang. As the smoke is clearing from all of these riots, and as the waves of the massive tsunami of wokeness that's flooded our nation over the last week begins to recede, we're beginning to see just how pathetically ridiculous all of this actually was. And I have to say at the outset, and I'll develop this more as we go along here, it is utterly astonishing to me how many conservatives, how many people on the right have been genuinely concerned about all this wokeness going on throughout our nation. And they're all like, in these comments I'm reading, it's all lost. Trump's down in the polls. The left is taking over in the country. It's our nation's finished, man. I mean, gang, seriously. When are you going to realize that the left can scream, they can weep and gnash their teeth, they can perform all kinds of self-immolating hysteria, but in the end, the left only ends up destroying itself? When are we going to finally get that? I'm hoping at least that today's video will help you realize that the left is only destroying itself if that reality hasn't already set in for you. After all the cancel culture BS, after all the kneeling down before the idol of political correctness, after all the calls to defund and disband the police and fundamentally restructure a systemically racist nation, after all of that, all the left has actually ended up doing is create a pathetically comical and hysterically moronic 6-block settlement in Seattle that's now being ruled by a freaking warlord. Just let that settle in a bit. Now, again, I don't want to make light of the people who've lost their jobs, right? They've been fired because they dare to take a stand against the far left or they get deplatformed. I know it's infuriating, no question. And I don't want to make light either on just how pathetic the Republican Party actually is in all this, where they just hide under their desks. Is it over? Is it over? They stopped looting? Again, I get it. It's infuriating, no question. But the good news in all of this, the good news for those of us who love our nation, our culture, our customs, and our traditions, the good news is that all the left ultimately ends up doing is destroying itself. And we have no better example of this than the so-called CHAZ, which stands for Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, right? As I'm sure you all are aware by now, in the leftist cesspool known as the City of Seattle, leftist radicals took over 6 or 7 city blocks that the police department deliberately abandoned. And these radicals are calling it CHAZ, right? The Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. And it centers around an abandoned police station. So they're refusing to leave until Seattle police force is completely dismantled, along with other bizarre and demands and the like. And the latest development in all this is that they now have their own warlord in charge, a fellow by the name of, he's a rapper, Raz Simone, and his armed crew are declaring themselves a law and order in the area. And as Tucker Carlson has brilliantly put it the other night, he pointed out that the first thing these Marxist rebels did, the very first thing, or one of the very first things they did, is they set up barriers all around the perimeter of the 6 or 7 city blocks they're occupying. Which, if you think about it, sounds a whole lot like what President Trump is doing at the southern border, doesn't it? Right? Nations require borders, and those borders need to be absolutely unambiguous. And one of the ways they're made unambiguous is through some kind of, yes, border enforcement. Well, what do you know? Now, needless to say, what many on the right are calling Antifastan, it's become a laughingstock throughout the nation. But don't tell that to liberal leftists. No, 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 no. They think the nation is all for it, right? The Seattle Met thinks that CHAZ has become America's fascination. That's right. We are supposedly fascinated by our nation's cities transforming into Mogadishu. Certainly the ever-increasingly woke New York Times thinks that. They're celebrating the commune for its free food, free speech, and free of police, right? They still call the New York Times a newspaper. It's hilarious. The truth is that the left is fascinated by Antifastan. The rest of the nation is laughing at it. Now, here's what makes the rounds on Twitter. Apparently, the community's food is being stolen by all the homeless that they invited in, and the occupiers are complaining about it, right? These Marxists are pleading with people on Twitter to bring them food because, of course, they don't have any. So much for all that free food. And then, of course, you have their pathetic attempt at farming. They're making attempts at planting a garden to have some kind of self-sustaining food supply. And Styx Hexenhammer was just merciless in his mocking of it today. Styx majored in botany, if I recall. And he's quite the gardener himself. So it's just comic relief at this point. Their feeble attempt at creating their own biosphere. It doesn't get better than that. I think this headline says it all. It only took 2 days for Seattle's autonomous zone to descend into chaos. I mean, that sums it up. Or how about this one from the American Spectator? Now here's what I'm understanding in all of this. Begging for soy in Antifastan, Seattle's Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone devolves into near immediate hilarity. Now, what I find so interesting in all of this is that there really are some on the right who are worried about this. They're actually worried that Chaz-style takeovers could happen all across America. They're worried about that more and more cities are going to start seceding from the United States and forming their own Antifastans. And I'm like, what the heck are you worried about? That's a perfect example of how to show how absolutely self-defeatingly absurd this whole thing is. This move to create a bunch of Antifastans really is. Think about it. If they really have declared themselves a sovereign nation, then they obviously won't be voting in the next election in November, will they? If every city decided to secede from the United States like the nation of Chaz has done, who's that going to hurt? The Republicans or the Democrats? When far leftists are no longer voting, which political party is that going to affect? Has the self-defeating absurdity hit you yet? See, here's a proposal. I hereby propose that every single city in our nation declare their independence today. All right, I want every city to become its own sovereign Antifastan, its own independent Chaz, and I want them to sit out on the next election, right? Now, can you imagine the radical left populations of San Francisco and LA and New York and Chicago and Houston all skipping political elections from this day forward? What will our nation, the United States of America, what will it suddenly look like? What would happen to the Democrat Party? What would happen to states like California, New York? They would all suddenly become permanently red states. That's what would happen. I cannot for the life of me understand why anyone on the right would be discouraged by the formation of Antifastans throughout our nation's cities. They're nothing more than left-wing cesspool cities seceding from our nation. Good freaking riddance. Goodbye. We, the rest of our nation, we have no problem never ever seeing our tax dollars wasted as it's drained down the toilet bowls of these cities. We have no problem never seeing another Democrat in public office again. Bring it on, man. Do you see, after all the pathetically pandering virtue signaling that we saw from our corporations and our CEOs and our Hollywood elite and the mainstream Marxist media, all they are ultimately doing is destroying themselves. Antifastan is a humiliating disaster for the Democrats and for the future of left-wing liberalism in this nation. So I, for one, I welcome Antifastan. I welcome them to the family of nations. As far as I know, I assure you, you will not be missed from the United States. Now, before you go, you'll definitely want to check out my latest video I just uploaded on how a massive backlash against the far left has indeed begun. It's going to absolutely make your day. So make sure to click on the link and I will see you over there. God bless.